Greetings, I am Tom Moreau, and this is my year of depth. We know you could be anywhere, so the fact that you are here today sharing your greatest gifts, your time and energy, means the world to me. I hope you know that in this moment, you are valued, you are loved, and you are appreciated just as you are. As you can see, we have ourselves another solo episode, and today we want to talk about hustling for our worthiness and the disciplined pursuit of less, and the way the addiction to busyness, the addiction to always doing more things, multitasking, yes, I can do that, yes, I can do that, yes, I can do that, the way it is interconnected to our disconnection from our worthiness. Brene Brown says, owning your story can be hard, but not nearly as difficult as spending our lives running from it. Embracing our vulnerabilities is risky, but not nearly as dangerous as giving up on love and belonging and joy. The experiences that make us the most vulnerable. Only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light. And today we want to uncover the story that we tell ourselves around how busyness makes us important. Saying yes means that we are needed. That I don't have time to rest, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that. When we are overextending into burnout, all of those things, how it is so interconnected to our worthiness. Brene Brown has a term you might have heard called hustling for our worthiness. And it's this idea that if only I were to accomplish this one more thing, if only I could achieve this certain level of success, then I could prove, then everyone would see that I actually am special, that I am worthy. I was watching a Janice Joplin documentary. Fantastic person. Beautiful human being who suffered from alcoholism and addiction. And they talked about how she became famous for being such a fantastic singer. And she went to her hometown to perform where she was from. And she grew up with a lot of ridicule and rejection. And they talked about how it was a really depressing experience for her, how it just really tore her up. Because she wanted to come back and everyone to see how she was famous, how she was something, how she was somebody, and they would all finally realize, you are worthy. And that didn't happen for her, and it really, really hurt. And so a lot of us, subconsciously or consciously, are trying to create something in our lives externally to prove that we are worthy internally. Maybe it's, I'm going to get married, have kids, and I will have the perfect family. My kids will be the happiest, most successful kids. My marriage will be the best marriage ever. We will live in the perfect house and neighborhood. You will see my family and realize how special I really am. Or work. I'm going to put in all of these long hours and sacrifice sleep and health and relationships because once I'm finally super rich, you will finally see. Nah, wait till I get my money, right? That kind of a philosophy, if you will, right? That once I achieve this external thing, then I can finally, everyone will see that I'm worthy. But here's the thing, that's called external validation. That's called an external goals. And the science is unequivocal. The science agrees across the board that external validation, external goals are highly correlated with addiction, depression, unworthiness, because the bar will always change. The outside accomplishments are never going to get you to feel great. And maybe you've experienced this yourself, where you said to yourself, let's say 5 years ago, once I achieve this level of success, I'll finally relax and I'll finally feel good about myself and people will finally see I'm worthy. And then you achieve that level of success, and there wasn't the parade in the street. There wasn't your parent or parents or guardian calling you, or that person that bullied you in high school or grade school. They didn't come knocking on your door and say, I was wrong. You are so amazing. How could I have been so foolish? And there wasn't this feeling inside of you that was like, finally, I accept that I am so amazing. Instead, what usually happens is the moment lasts for a few seconds, a few minutes, a day, a weekend, and we reset the bar. Okay, that didn't quite give me the feeling I thought it was going to. Let me reset the bar. And off we are to the races again, trying to achieve this outside thing that'll finally get us to feel the way we want to feel inside. That's why Brene Brown always says that you are worthy of love without requisite, meaning there isn't something that you need to do first to now be worthy of love. That right now in this moment, whether you are in your own mind a piece of shit, what, I've nothing to show for my life, I'm in the gutter, you are amazing. And that when you're in the gutter and when you're in the skyscraper, that in both instances you are the same worthy of loveness, the same level of worthiness, right? Becoming super successful and a philanthropist and the most amazing person, a Mother Teresa, or you're in the gutter and everybody's kicking dirt on you as you walk by. In both instances, your level of worthiness is the exact same. Now, I want you to just sit on this, because this can be a little bit mind-blowing, that even if you were to, let's say, you invent something that cures cancer, millions of people no longer die. Millions of families no longer destroyed by something as terrible as cancer. And then let's say you get really rich from it too. And you donate all this money. You become a billionaire. You donate, first of all, you cured cancer. Now you're a billionaire and you give away every single dollar. And by giving away those billions of dollars, you solve another problem that people thought could never be solved. Even after you do all those things, you are still the same level of worthiness now than you are then. It did not increase. It didn't increase. Even after all those things you did, you cured cancer, for goodness sakes. You are still the same level of worthiness. And we can look at that in two ways. One, it's hopeless. I can never become more loved, even if I accomplish all those things, Tom. Or you are already loved in an infinite way. You are already deserving of love in an infinite way right now. And nothing that you do can take away from that. And nothing you do can add to that, because it's already at infinite, my friends. Sit with this. Really sit with this. Even after you stop listening to this podcast, I want you to sit with that and start to identify where in your life are you doing something subconsciously because we want the reward of love. Someone calls us and says, can you do this thing for me? And you're like, well, that's my one day off and I've been working an 80-hour week. What I really need to do, honestly, is sleep. But if I say no, they're probably going to get upset. And I want them to like me. So I'm going to say yes. Little things like that. I want us to become self-aware of where that is going on in our lives. In Shonda Rhimes' book, Year of Yes, she has this chapter where she talks about trying to balance being a really awesome mom and trying to balance, being Thursday night. And she talked about how she was like, I'm going to be amazing at both. I'm going to rock it 100% at both. And that when sometimes, let's say she had to really go hard in on her TV shows, and then she was giving less energy to motherhood, she would feel so guilty about that. And then when she was putting more energy into motherhood and less energy into her shows, she would feel guilty about that, until she had this realization that I can't be everywhere at once. And that's how it's meant to be. That is okay. That there will be times where we need to give our energy to one thing, and we are not this infinite pouring out of energy, right? We have finite time, finite energy. And I don't care what the abundance YouTube thing you're listening to right now is telling you. The you can have it all is a great marketing tactic. You can maybe have it all, but you can't have it all at the same time. Right? So let me have a keep it real with you moment. That there you have finite time, finite energy, and you have infinite choices, and that friction between finite time, finite resources, and infinite choices is one of the word I want to use is plague. Might be a little rough. One of the biggest challenges of our time, especially when so many marketing messages you're receiving are, you can have it all. And I say marketing message because it is definitely what you want to hear. And marketing is all about telling you what you want to hear, so you give me that money. So what I want to talk about with you all today, my friends, is this very thing. There is a great author called Greg McKeown. He has 2 books, Essentialism and Effortless. And I read Essentialism back in, I want to say, 2015. And it was in a time of my life where I was saying yes to everything. I've mentioned in past podcasts, I was the host of 4 or 5 podcasts. I had 4 or 5 jobs. I was doing this. I was doing that. I was hustling. And it was destroying my health. And I wasn't doing anything really deep. I was doing everything shallow because I was spreading my energy out. And I read this book, Essentialism, and it blew my mind. So basically, you can summarize Essentialism in one sentence. Essentialism is the disciplined pursuit of less. Now, this blew my mind. It was exactly what I needed to hear. And we're going to share just a couple passages from this book. But what we're going to talk about, if we have time, is quite a bit of the new book, Effortless. And I want to suggest that you get both of them if you haven't read them. So here we go. Let me share a story with you from Essentialism that can set the stage. This is from Essentialism by Greg McKeown, reading from this book directly. Here we go. A woman named Cynthia once told me a story about the time her father had made plans to take her on a night out in San Francisco. 12-year-old Cynthia and her father had been planning the date for months. They had a whole itinerary planned down to the minute. She would attend the last hour of his presentation and then meet him at the back of the room at about 4:30 and leave quickly before everyone tried to talk to him. They would catch a trolley car to Chinatown, eat Chinese food, which is their favorite, shop for a souvenir, see the sights for a while, and then catch a flick, as her dad liked to say. Then they would grab a taxi back to the hotel, jump in the pool for a quick swim. Her dad was famous for sneaking her in when the pool was closed, order a hot fudge sundae from room service, and watch the Late Late Show. They discussed the details over and over before they left. The anticipation was part of the whole experience. Now, this was all going according to plan. As her father was leaving the convention center, he ran into an old college friend and business associate. It had been years since they had seen each other, and Cynthia watched as they embraced enthusiastically. His friend said, in effect, "I'm so glad you are doing some work with our company now. When Lois and I heard about it, we thought it would be perfect. We want to invite you, and of course Cynthia, to get a spectacular seafood dinner down at the wharf." Cynthia's father responded, "Bob, it's great to see you. Dinner at the wharf sounds great." Whew. Now, you can imagine Cynthia was crestfallen. Her daydreams of trolley rides and ice cream sundaes evaporated in an instant. Plus, she hated seafood, and she could just imagine how bored she would be listening to the adults talk all night. But then her father continued, "But not tonight. Cynthia and I have a special date planned, don't we?" He winked at Cynthia and grabbed her hand, and they ran out the door and continued with what was an unforgettable night in San Francisco. Oh my gosh, I'm getting teary-eyed, y'all. Oh, this is hitting me, y'all know, my daughter. Now, this is something that we're going to pause the scripts. This story hits me. It's not even done, and I already am teary-eyed because I just think through in my life, and I'm sure any parents do, the work-life balance that we all strive through. So we're going to finish the story here. So he winked at Cynthia and grabbed her hand, and they ran out the door and continued with what was an unforgettable night in San Francisco. And as it happens, Cynthia's father was the management thinker Stephen R. Covey, author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, who had passed away only weeks before Cynthia told me this story. So it was with deep emotion she recalled that evening in San Francisco. His simple decision, and we're quoting her here, his simple decision bonded him to me forever because I knew what mattered most to him was me. Whoo, that one just gets me, y'all. Greg McKeown and Essentialism. What really matters to you? That is the essence of Essentialism, is to get really, really clear on what matters to you and to take a longer view on it, a bird's eye view, to zoom out. We can get so lost in the day-to-day tasks, the day-to-day hustle and bustle. We can get in the thick of it, as they say where I'm from, and we can, without even realizing it, days, weeks, years, a lifetime goes by on trivial things. Instead of getting clear on what matters and creating boundaries. Let's read again from the book. Steve McKeown in Essentialism, he says, only once you have given yourself permission to stop trying to do it all, to stop saying yes to everyone, can you make your highest contribution towards the things that really matter. The way of an essentialist means living by design, not by default. When I started to read this book, I realized that I was trying to do it all. I was saying yes to everyone. And I thought that's how you make a great contribution. You help as many people as you can. You do as many things as you can. And as this book really helped me to realize that I wasn't making a high contribution. That when I started to, instead of living by default, to design my life, that's when I was able to go deep. And deep makes a huge impact. And so I got clear. I actually journaled, what are the different areas of my life? Okay, the two big ones we got, personal life, professional life. Now, I emphasize quite a bit on this podcast that normally we talk a lot about people over-indexing into the professional life. But a lot of folks I talk to also over-index into their personal life, especially if we have kids. Everything becomes about your kids. Take them to this, take them to that. You're super tired, they want to go to this thing, we're taking them anyways. And we need balance in our personal life just as much as we need balance in our professional life. Or if you don't have kids, we get in the thick of it whenever our friends have conflict, whenever our family members have conflict, we are going to try to solve all of their problems and we get burnt out. That is also living by default, not by design. So after we get split up into these two categories, professional life, personal life, what would you say are the top 4 or 5 areas of focus within each of those? And what are the most meaningful things in each of those buckets? Now, in this story, I don't have the quote pulled out, but one of the things that really hit me in this book is Greg talks about priorities. Now, if I was to say to you, what are your priorities today? A lot of us would, if we were to write it down maybe 10 things. When the word priority, Greg reminds us, actually means one thing. You should have one priority today. And so when I plan my day, I have my to-do list, if you will. I have my to-do list on the right. It's got so many things. It does. And then on the left, I have 3 priorities. And I drag from my to-do list my 3 priorities. And I know this is what today is. At the most, if I'm lucky, I will get to 3 priorities. But I know most likely I will get to 1. Otherwise, what I do is I run around with the, here comes another phrase from where I'm from, chicken with my head cut off, if you will. Trying to get it all done and stressed. And the thing about that is the bar is always moving. It becomes a game of, how can I just get as many things done as possible and hopefully I'll finally feel less stressed. Now let's go back to the book here. Greg McKeown, Essentialism. Everything changes when we give ourselves permission to be more selective in what we choose to do. At once, we hold the key to unlock the next level of achievement in our lives. There is tremendous freedom in learning that we can eliminate the non-essentials, that we are no longer controlled by other people's agendas, and that we get to choose. With that invincible power, we can discover our highest point of contribution, not just to our lives or careers, but to the world. Now, I know this might sound easier said than done. Tom, I get it, but people are relying upon me. I worked at a place that was the complete opposite of essentialism. From the top down, the board, the CEO, they were obsessed with the undisciplined pursuit of more. Everything. Say yes to everything. Say yes to everything. Luckily, I wasn't salaried, and so I had a limited amount of hours that I could work with them. So usually, I'm sure you've experienced this, there was maybe 70 hours worth of work that they needed me to do, and I had about 35 hours of work that I could do. So here's how I handled that if you're in this kind of a situation. I would write down all of the things that I was asked to do. Boom, wrote it all down. And then I would estimate, based upon past experience, how long each task would take. So let's say they gave me 50 tasks. I'd write down next to each one. This will probably take 2 hours. This will probably take 5 hours. This will probably take 10 hours. This, everybody's going to want to give their opinion on. So if we factor that in, all the revisions, it'll probably take another 30 hours. So I went through, and then I went through my month, and I dragged onto a calendar each of those tasks and for how long it would take, right? So if I was working, let's say 8 to 5, Monday through Thursday, I would drag the task and be like, okay, if this is going to take 4 hours, then 8 to noon, that's when it'll take. Okay, and I did it for my whole month. And by the end of the 70 tasks they wanted me to do, there was probably a good 20 to 30 left. And so I would go to my manager and say, okay, cool. So this is my month. I have meticulously estimated how long things have taken based upon past experience. As you can see, I'm out of time. And this is where I put it on them, right? And so, what would you like me to not do? Or what would you like to pay me more to do? And the person would get really frustrated with me. It was never a comfortable thing, but the data was right there. It's no longer me personally saying, I can't do all of this. It was like, hey, look, here it is. And then they would take that back, and usually what would happen is they'd be like, fine, I'll just do it myself. And that person would work 100 hours a week and just hate it. So it was not a healthy place. That being said, that is a strategy I found works really well if you are working with somebody and they do not embrace this, or vice versa, if people are coming to you, if you're in charge, helping your coworkers, your employees embrace this by doing something similar. So here, we're going to read this last one from the book. Here we go. What if we stopped celebrating being busy as a measurement of importance? What if instead we celebrated how much time we had spent listening, pondering, meditating, and enjoying time with the most important people in our lives? What if we stopped celebrating being busy as a measurement of importance? Interesting. One time I sent somebody my calendar link on a group email. They introduced me to somebody. They were like, hey, I want you to connect with this person. I think it'll be good business. And so I sent it over. I was like, hey, thanks for introducing me. How are you doing? Hey, you can grab a time on my calendar below. And I have certain days of the week for me because I block out my schedule so I can implement the things I've learned in this book. And so let's say, I don't know, Tuesdays and Wednesdays from 8 to noon, people can grab 15-minute appointments. And so if you opened up my calendar, you'd see this upcoming Tuesday and Wednesday. I had, 10 slots each day, whatever it is, if you break up 5 hours into 15-minute increments. So I sent that, and then the person who introduced me got back to me and said, hey, I noticed you sent over your calendar, and I opened it up, and you have quite a few slots available, and I don't think that looks good. It makes it look like you're not busy. And so people are going to think you're not as successful. So I'd recommend only giving them access to 2 or 3 options so that it looks like you're really busy. I was like, that, and this is somebody that's amazing, by the way. This person's really awesome. I admire them. They're listening. They're like, wait, I think that was me. You're amazing. I love you. This is not a criticism. But it really was a commentary on this seeing busy as a measurement of importance. And we can find ourselves in this trap of trying to be as busy as we can and feeling like that is a great thing. And so a lot of this really comes down to self-awareness, is starting to recognize where in our life are these patterns and these habits of the undisciplined pursuit of everything showing up. And to take us back to connecting that a lot of this has to do with our emotions and boundaries and being a pleaser and hustling for our worthiness and difficult conversations and power and privilege, and all of those things definitely goes into this. And yet there is areas of all of our lives, no matter what, where we get to have even a sliver of autonomy. That being said, I have a feeling many of us listening have more autonomy than we are giving ourselves credit for. And so the encouragement of this is to first start to recognize where in your life are we bringing to the surface the exact opposite of what we've been talking about. So instead of the disciplined pursuit of less, saying yes to everything, trying to be everywhere at one time. There is a great word in this book called a planning fallacy. And it's this, where if you're going to be realistic, this project is going to take 3 hours. I have 1 hour. So I say to myself, I can make it happen. I know I only have 1 hour. I know this takes 3 hours, but I'm going to be able to do it. And then you get there, it's 45 minutes. You have about 10 minutes left, and you are, of course, barely only a third of the way through. So you're super stressed. You didn't finish it because we know it's going to take 3 hours, but it only takes an hour. Or we book back-to-back appointments. We're like, look, I will be disciplined. I'll finish the call right on time, but the first call goes 5 minutes over, so you're 5 minutes late for the next one. That one goes 5 minutes over, so now you're 10 minutes late for the next one. And it just spirals. It spirals. That's called a planning fallacy. And Adora and I, we keep each other accountable. Well, I'll say, this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get that. She'll say, sounds like a planning fallacy. And so I want you to start to recognize in your life, when you do that, when you say, you know in your mind this is going to take longer, but you still end up trying to do it. I have a friend that whenever I meet up with him, it's always chaos. He's always late, and the car's a mess, and there's like coffee here, and he's brushing his teeth and this and that, and rushes to hang out with me, and he's late to me. So then he's like, oh my gosh, I gotta go meet with somebody else. And it's like this constant rushing, which means this constant stress, this constant flight or fright that we're doing inside of our bodies, instead of just being like, Tom, I can't hang out with you because I already got enough on my plate today. Let's try to do it another time. All good. So start to become aware of where in your life is this showing up, and then getting honest, going within and asking, why? Why is this showing up? Where is this coming from? What is happening? In the book, as Greg McKeown says, whatever decision or challenge or crossroads you face in your life, simply ask yourself, what is essential, and eliminate everything else. I know this is all easier said than done, so don't put this pressure and judgment on yourself that you have to immediately be good at this now. Just start with awareness and then connect the dots. Where does this behavior come from? Therapy is a great, amazing, probably even necessary, required tool to make this happen. I would, if I was you, and I do this myself, is little journal. When something comes up and I say yes when I should have said no, when I do a planning fallacy, when I find myself hustling for my worthiness, I write down the moment. And then when it's my session with my therapist, I bring it up and we process it. We see where it comes from. One of my big things that it comes from, perfectionism. I want to be perfect, because then if I'm perfect, I can finally then relax and know I'm loved. One of the things that I'm constantly working on. I know I keep saying it, I'm only going to read one more thing. Here goes the last one. Remember that if you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. But if you are determined to prioritize your own life, you can. The power is yours. It is within you. That's again a quote from Greg McKeown in Essentialism. I should have known. We didn't get a chance to talk about the second book. That was a planning fallacy on my part. So we'll do another episode here in the future, maybe even back to back, where we will go through his effortless book. My friends, this has been such a wonderful opportunity to hang out with you. If you are interested in applying what we've talked about today to your marketing, specifically, if you want to apply it to your Facebook ads, we use an essentialist perspective with the Facebook ad strategies that we use. You can head to tomearl.me/ads, tomearl.me/ads. For those of you who are listening, I would love it if you could share with me what resonated with you today at tomearlartist. tom@tomearl.com is where you can also email me. My invitation to you is to become self-aware of where in your life can you embrace the disciplined pursuit of less. How can you get clear on what really matters to you? And then connect the dots on the discomfort that comes up around saying no, and figure out emotionally, what am I carrying around that keeps leading me to saying yes to things I know I should say no to. Because the more clear we can get on what really matters, the deeper we go into the impact we can make, the greater our contribution, our happiness, and our overall well-being, my friends. I appreciate you all. I will see you next time. As always, I'm wishing you peace and blessings. Thank you. One more thing. I'd love to continue the conversation. Feel free to join me at tomearl.com/join. Subscribe below, or let's connect on social media. Tom Earl Artist. Thanks again for watching.